I had never liked the walk home from the office, especially as the sun dipped below the horizon. The streetlights flickered to life, casting elongated shadows that twisted and turned like fingers grasping at my coat. I had always dismissed the unease that crept up my spine as mere paranoia until that night. It was a particularly chilly evening. I hurried down the darkened street, the muffled sounds of the city fading behind me. I wrapped my scarf tighter around my neck, my breath visible in the cold air. As I passed a narrow alley, I noticed something, an inky shadow that seemed to shift against the brick wall, almost pulsating with a life of its own. I stopped, heart pounding. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, but the figure loomed larger, its edges indistinct, like smoke coiling in the night. I turned and quickened my pace, glancing back only once to see it still there, watching. Panic surged through me. I broke into a run, the sound of my footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. Finally, I reached the safety of my apartment, slamming the door behind me. I leaned against it, breathless, trying to shake the image of that shadowy figure from my mind. The next day, I forced myself to take the same route. Rationality urged me that it was nothing, just a figment of my imagination. But as twilight descended once more, the familiar dread settled over me like a heavy cloak. The air felt thick, charged with something unnameable. When I reached the alley, I felt a cold draft, like a whisper from the darkness. Against my better judgment, I peered into the depths of the alley. A figure emerged from the shadows, pale and gaunt, its eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. The unmistakable outline of fangs glinted in the dim light. It was a vampire. Fear clutched my throat as I stumbled backward, heart racing. I turned and ran, adrenaline propelling me faster than I thought possible. The vampire's laughter echoed behind me, a chilling sound that filled the night air with dread. "You can't escape it," taunted, voice smooth yet laced with malice. I rounded corners, pushing through the rising panic, desperate to reach home. The streets felt endless, the distance stretching impossibly. Every sound an echo, a whisper felt like it was closing in on me. The shadows seemed to dance with the flickering streetlights, almost alive. I reached my building, nearly falling through the front door as I slammed it shut. I locked it, breathing heavily, pressing my back against the door. I could still hear that laughter echoing in my mind, mixing with the pounding of my heart. That night, sleep evaded me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the encounter. The image of those gleaming fangs haunted me. What did it want? Why me? As the days passed, I became a prisoner of my own fear. I avoided that route, opting for longer, safer paths that kept me far from the alley. But the world felt smaller, closing in around me as I stayed vigilant, scanning every shadow. Then came a night that seemed darker than the others, the sky heavy with clouds. I felt a compulsion to step outside, the air calling to me. Against my better judgment, I walked towards the alley once more. My heart raced, each step echoing in the stillness. And then, I saw it again. The vampire stood at the entrance, a twisted smile curling its lips. "You came back," it said, voice silky and sinister. I froze, the fear paralyzing. "Stay away from me," I shouted, the bravado barely masking my terror. "Why would I do that?" it replied, stepping closer, the shadows swirling around it. "You're so much more interesting when you're afraid." I turned to run, but the darkness seemed to shift around me, the shadows stretching and twisting, closing in. The laughter echoed again, a haunting melody that pierced the night. I stumbled, falling hard onto the pavement. The vampire loomed over me, its face now mere inches from mine, eyes reflecting a hunger that chilled me to my core. "You've already lost it," whispered, breath cold against my skin. I scrambled to my feet and bolted, my heart pounding so fiercely it felt like it might burst. The world around me blurred as I sprinted, fueled by pure adrenaline. I didn't dare look back. Every second counted. The laughter of the vampire echoed behind me, growing fainter with every step, but the terror clung to me like a second skin. When I finally reached my apartment, I slammed the door shut, locked it tight, and collapsed against it, gasping for breath. My entire body trembled, my mind racing. I had never felt such fear, such raw panic. The vampire's chilling presence still lingered in my thoughts, but I was safe for now. That night, I lay in bed, every creak and whisper of the shadows sending a fresh wave of dread through me. Sleep never came. Instead, I spent the hours replaying the encounter, the image of that twisted smile and gleaming fangs burning into my mind. I knew one thing for certain: I would never walk down that street again.